Greetings, Sky Cadets. Captain Lance Fantastic here, and welcome to another episode of Captain Lance Fantastic, American Trucker. What do you say we fire up the old Sky Patrol radio and see what Brooks has in store for us today?
Interweb radio reception is within tolerances. You are listening to Sky Patrol Old Time Radio.
Hello, Brooks. Are you there?
Hello, Captain Lance. I am Brooks. I am Sky Patrol's bio-robotic object-oriented knowledge system, the most advanced and complete database of film, radio and television
in the world.
Fantastic. What's on schedule for us today?
Today's delivery report has us scheduled to pick up a trailer at Walbert here in Phoenix and delivering it to the sell goods in Camp Verde. We will be hauling approximately 34,120 pounds of toys and earning $35.99 per mile, giving us an estimated $2,993 for the first part of the 80 or so mile run. Once we're done delivering the toys, we'll need to head over to the Walbert in Camp Verde to haul some recycling materials in the form of used packaging to the sell goods off of Buckeye Road in Phoenix. This part of the route is $22.15 per mile for the 39,000 pounds of cargo weight, and with about a 90-mile drive, that should give us around $2,513 in payment. In all, that should be just over a $5,500 paycheck for the whole route.
That all sounds perfectly good to me, and I even think we can knock this route out today. That is, if everything's okay with the truck. So how's Steam Dragon feeling today, Brooks?
I am not registering any issues. We are green to go, Captain Lance.
Fantastic. And what's on the old interwebs radio for us this evening?
Tonight, I have selected an evening of Boris Karloff radio programs, and I will also be interspersing those with various vintage radio commercials, and of course, with music from one of your favourites.
Is it Glen Miller?
Of course, Captain Lance.
Fantastic. So Boris Karloff, huh?
Yes. I know you are a big fan of his films and television programs.
I do love those Colonel March of Scotland Yard shows, and I still say Chris Carter ripped those shows off for his stinking X-Files garbage.
Yes. Well, anyway, my database has found a blog post reference about Mr. Karloff's spoken word recordings from November 27th, 2009, located on the Hammer and Beyond website.
All right, let's hear what they have to say.
Just a cursory glance at the listing on the official Karloff site reveals that he was one of the more prolific radio actors. His mellifluous voice was ideal for radio shows, and his old-time radio output was tremendous. There's hardly a month in his career in which he did not record radio shows, and in actual fact, there was many a period when he was involved in several shows per month. This is a gigantic output, especially considering that at the same time he was also busy shooting hundreds of movies and TV shows. But the sheer numbers of radio shows is not the only thing to hit you when you start looking at Karloff, the radio performer. More important is the sheer range and versatility of these performances. Sure, true to form, there are indeed a wide range of macabre performances that come with the territory, but he also appeared in comedy shows, often spoofing his own image. And if you were always annoyed that he didn't star in Frank Capra's Arsenic and Old Lace, rejoice as you can listen to him reprising his stage role as Jonathan Brewster in a couple of radio dramas. Together with his colleague John Carradine, he also appeared in Information Please, a celebrity radio quiz show in which he was able to demonstrate a wide range of knowledge that would put most current celebs to shame. He also was the host of a long-running series of factual programs based on stories published in the Reader's Digest.
And we'll be listening to a few selections from the Reader's Digest recordings tonight.
Excellent. You are amazing, Brooks.
Thank you, Captain Lance. Now beginning streaming services.
Get wild, Ruth Cream, wild Charlie. It keeps your hair in trim. You see, it's non-alcoholic Charlie. Charlie. It's made with pseudolanolin. You better get wild through Scream Oil, Charlie. Start using it today. You'll find that you will have a tough time, Charlie. Keeping all those gals away. Hurry up, Baldy. Get a bottle right away. Your druggist has it. A little goes a long, long way. You hear it screaming. Keeps you looking neat all day.
This is a good time of the year to thank all of you at your station for your interest in presenting the Boris Karloff program. It's a real pleasure to work with you all, and I appreciate your cooperation very much indeed. May I also wish you and yours a most Merry Christmas and a prosperous and a happy New Year.
Are you one of the frightened? Do you whistle past the graveyard? Well, then perhaps you're really like the rest of us. So come with me. Just a short ride through the hills past the old burial grounds where Count Alexis met the lady in the long flowing veil. The famous castle of the Alexis family had long towered on the hillside in the Bavarian valley. Count Alexis himself, the last surviving member of the historic clan, was tall and handsome and kind. Indeed, the only wonder in the village was, when would he marry and raise a son to continue the glory of his ancestors? And then one storm-tossed night when he was out on the marshes with his hunting dog, Alexis saw a tall, beautiful, dark-haired woman in a long, flowing veil walking across the meadows towards him. It seemed her carriage had overturned on the bridge and crashed into the raging waters of the Casney River. Her driver and horses had perished, but she had managed to save herself. The Count had already surrendered to the romance of their meeting, but only the hound dog seemed to whimper and growl and behave badly whenever the lady drew near him. But the Count insisted that the lady be his guest and took her straight to his castle. Within a fortnight, Alexis had wooed and won her, and the village celebrated the wonderful news. Alexis would have an heir. But in the days preceding the marriage, the young Count seemed to be failing in health. He lost weight so that his uniform seemed to hang on him. And curiously enough, to the staff of the castle, Sonia, their future mistress, fairly glowed with health since her ordeal in the river. But when no one could recall seeing her in the daytime, rumors began to spread. The old wives' tales about vampires who stalk at night and sleep in the daytime swept through the village like wildfire, and finally, up in the master bedroom where he lay exhausted, Count Alexis himself had to credit the rumors. How else his sudden loss of weight and failing health? And why should Sonia's blooming good health coincide exactly with the loss of his own vitality? Count Alexis made up his mind. He pulled the bell cord by his bed and summoned his manservant. When the fellow appeared, the Count asked that his fiancée be brought to him. But the servant shook his head. The Lady Sonia had gone out before dawn, riding off to the west, as was her usual custom. Count Alexis had heard enough. He dressed, armed himself with a short dagger, and ordered his fastest horse. He thundered down the castle road off to the west, towards the very spot where he had first met Sonia. The meadows were barren, and darkness was coming on. The Count led his horse carefully over the hilly ground. Finally, he found what he was looking for. A stone slab set in the earth, covered over with vines and leaves. Triumphantly, he dragged it to one side, and looking down, he could just make out an open coffin with Sonia lying in it, her pale beauty and blood-red lips gleaming in the dying light. Alexis drew his dagger and raised it for the kill. It is said the only way that you can kill a vampire is a stake through the heart while it sleeps. But suddenly, A dagger fell from his hands, and a slow, eerie smile played over his face. Like a stone man, he settled down beside her to wait for the vampire's hour. For he had learned Sonia's secret too late to stop him from becoming a vampire himself. See now, my friend? See? Those two bats wheeling through the darkness? It's Sonia and Count Alexis winging through the night and waiting for the chance to assume human form again. You don't believe me? Well, I'm sorry. The people of the village will believe nothing else. My, but you do have a soft, delicate throat.
Thanks, Frank. That was swell.
I'm glad you liked it, Harry.
You know, you're a darn good-looking fellow. I'll bet you have lots of girls crazy about you.
Oh, I don't know.
Oh, you're just being modest. But tell me, how do you feel when you're in love?
How do I feel? My gosh, Harry, it's the most wonderful feeling in the world. Why, when I'm in love, I'm just breezing along with the breeze. I never mind the bumps or the ruts along the highway of life. I float through life on a cloud.
And that, folks, is exactly the way you feel in the famous Dodge Air Glide ride. If you haven't experienced this thrill, visit the showroom of your local Dodge dealer. See for yourself the extra value you get in this big, new, money-saving Dodge. Believe me, folks, it certainly is more car for less money. Think of it. The new Dodge Beauty Winner of 1936 now sells for only $640 and up. List prices at Factory Detroit.
Say, that is something, Harry. But how about you singing a song now?
Don't mind if I do.
The National Broadcasting Company invites you to listen to Glenn Miller's music. It's sound dancing, ladies and gentlemen, with the foremost exponent of the swing trombone, Glenn Miller and his orchestra, playing on the shore of Long Island Sound, in the picturesque Glen Island Casino, just off the Shore Road at New Rochelle, New York. Glenn Miller's music. Strictly for the class of the crepe-soled shoes. The Glenn Miller arrangement of Runnin' Wild.
is Gomez, CEO and Program Director of the Kaijuiso channel located here on YouTube. I just wanted to take a moment and say thank you. Thank you for your time in watching our content, for without you and our endless need for constant attention, our staff would be forced once again into meaningless servitude working at county fairs and circus sideshows. So please, hit those like and subscribe buttons and share with a friend. Thanks again, and remember, you're watching the Kaijuiso channel. Yeah, it's pretty awesome.
You worked too hard, you ate too much, the cheesecake made you greedy, but your aching head and stomach hear this message from old Speedy. Alka, Seltzer, Plop, Plop, Fizz, Fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Plop, Plop, Fizz, Fizz, oh, what a relief it is. Ah, those speedy Alka-Seltzer bubbles burst into action to relieve your upset stomach and aching head fast. Use only as directed. Oh, what a relief it is. What a relief.
This is Boris Karloff speaking. I'm here with a story for you from the files of the Reader's Digest. Who killed Chung Ling Soo? The coroner's verdict was death by misadventure, but the fate of magician Chung Ling Soo was almost certainly no accident. The strange story begins in New York 60 years ago. A certain William Ellsworth Robinson, a magician by profession, was broke. Far less skillful men than he were getting all the jobs, and Robinson decided to try a desperate gamble. And so in May 1900, a glittering-eyed man with a queue and flowing oriental raiment registered at a fashionable hotel in London. With him, there traveled a diminutive, slant-eyed maiden. They called themselves the illustrious Chung Ling Soo and his assistant, Susie Scene. But back home in America, they'd just been plain Bill and Dottie Robinson. After just one performance at the famed Alhambra, Chung Ling Soo's success was assured. Things went fine for a time. Then into the pretender's paradise came temptation. Her name was Estelle. He was sure that his romance was a secret, until one night he found an anonymous note on his dressing room table. Be careful. Don't forget that in your bullet-catching trick, your wife loads the guns. Surely Dottie didn't suspect. Or did she? It wore on his nerves. So he decided on a divorce. He'd marry Estelle and end this worrying. And then, unbelieving, he heard his beloved say, "Oh no, Chung, I could never marry anyone but an American. But I am an American, I'll prove it." Next day, dressed in Western clothes, he called on Estelle. She stared at him shocked. What she saw was an undistinguished man, halting and ordinary in speech. Where was the strange, alluring figure from the east? Miserably, Chung Ling Soo confided in a friend. "It's like having two men in one body," he said. "One wants a woman that he can't have, and the other has a woman that he's afraid of." His friend was worried. "I wish you wouldn't do the bullet-catching trick tonight," he said. "Well, this is the last time I'll ever do it," promised Chung Ling Soo, and went out onto the stage. The trick began as always. 4 spectators were coaxed up onto the stage. Other audience members were asked to examine the bullets. Then Dottie Robinson loading the bullets into guns. Then music, Chung giving the sign, fire. The curtain fell, and behind it, Robinson lay dead in the arms of the innocent Susie Scene. Houdini made a public statement explaining the gun trick. Normally, the bullets never left the guns. The performer carried duplicates in his mouth, but this time the trick mechanism in the guns must have failed to work. But Chung's friend knew that there had been no accident, knew that Chung Ling Soo had been slain on that stage by his envious other self, the killer and the victim falling together in one body. The sad but true story of the wizard Chung Ling Soo is from the Reader's Digest back files, but it bears a resemblance to an article in the current December issue of the magazine, also about some wizardry. In this case, the subject matter is more cheerful, for the wizardry involves some fabulous automatic devices which will do anything from steering an aeroplane to keeping the snakes in the zoo happy. The name of the article is They're Wizards on Control, and I found it most interesting. I'll be joining you soon again with more transcribed stories, but until next time, this is Boris Karloff saying goodbye.
When this dead hand moves, the monster created by a man they called Mad is turned loose to strike terror into the hearts of men. To shock women into uncontrolled hysteria. Elizabeth! To prey upon the innocence of children. This is the story you've heard about, talked about. The spine-tingling, blood-chilling story that stuns your emotions. Frankenstein. Don't touch that!
This is Boris Karloff speaking. I'm here with a story for you from the files of the Reader's Digest. The man on the operating table was suffering from a tumor on the brain. Swiftly, the surgeon and newly graduated intern went to work. A few hours later, the patient died. It came as a surprise to no one, for the year was 1895, and in those days, 9 out of 10 patients failed to survive brain surgery. 25 years later, the young intern had reversed the odds. 9 out of 10 patients survived brain operations. His name? Dr. Harvey Cushing. As an undergraduate at Yale, he was a good but uninspired student. But in medical school, in surgery, he found his true vocation, and yet, because of an experience in medical school, Cushing almost gave up medicine. It was regular practice for second-year students to administer ether, and Cushing had served in that capacity only a few times when one of his patients died in the middle of an operation. He blamed himself and decided to give up being a doctor. Only the arguments of friends finally made him change his mind. When Cushing hung up his shingle in Baltimore, his salary as staff physician at a hospital was just $350 a year. Hoping to augment it, the 32-year-old surgeon requested that all cases at Johns Hopkins in which brain surgery was indicated be referred to him. It was only a trickle at first, for doctors almost universally regarded a brain operation as a sentence of death. But as Cushing's brain tumor mortality rate kept dropping, more and more cases came to him, and almost single-handed he had created a new surgical specialty. After America's entry into World War I, Dr. Cushing was commissioned a major and took a surgical team overseas. At home, he had considered a single brain operation a full day's work, but at the front, he tackled as many as 8 a day, operating by candlelight when air alerts had shut off the power. In August 1918, at Chateau Thierry, Cushing came down with an obscure infection of the nervous system. After the armistice, he returned to this country and slowly, painfully, his fingers regained their skill. He was never able to walk easily again. But Dr. Cushing was as busy as ever. His surgical technique was still advancing, though sometimes he operated sitting down. In a lifetime of brilliant accomplishment, Harvey Cushing was showered with international honors, but he was first of all the friend of sick people in their time of trouble. He could command astronomical fees from the wealthy, but a patient of limited means might find enclosed with Dr. Cushing's modest bill a note. I don't want you to feel bound to pay this account unless you can really manage to do so. But if you can pay it or can pay part of it in due course, I'll be obliged to you. I found the story of Dr. Harvey Cushing in the back files of the Reader's Digest. But in the current December issue of the magazine, there's the story of another immortal man of medicine, Hideo Noguchi, disease detective extraordinary. Now, if Sherlock Holmes had been lured into a fatal trap by a suspect in his greatest case, his end would have been comparable to the martyrdom of the Rockefeller Institute's incomparable disease detective. For Noguchi died of yellow fever in West Africa, the victim of a murderous microorganism that he had tracked halfway round the world himself. The whole story is in the December issue of the Reader's Digest. I'll be joining you soon again with more transcribed stories, but until then, this is Boris Karloff saying goodbye.
The National Broadcasting Company invites you to listen to Glenn Miller's music. Here's an unusual bit of modern melody that has become easily adaptable to the America's dancing favorites of today. Glenn Miller and his orchestra playing Pavan from American Symphonette No. 2.
Suspending streaming services. Captain Lance, we have arrived back at our home base garage. Congratulations on another successful run.
Thanks, Brooks. And I'm definitely ready for some dinner, then crashing for the night.
A most excellent plan, Captain Lance. Shall I order dinner for delivery?
Yeah. How about some pizza? Regular toppings? Oh, and let's get garlic cheesy stuffed crust. Yum, 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 yum.
Not the healthiest of meals, but it will be ordered to your specifications. Captain Lance, I am registering minor issues with the truck's tire pressure. It is nothing serious, but I recommend a cursory inspection before we travel next time.
Okay, will do.
Captain Lance.
Yes?
Don't forget to say goodnight to our guests.
Oh, shoot, yes. Hey, thanks for everyone for making it to the end of the video. I really do appreciate all you guys and for helping me reach the next goal of 500 subscribers. I'll see you all next time for another episode of Captain Lance Fantastic, American Trucker. And here's wishing you clear skies, Sky Cadets.